Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I will be talking to former students who will tell their story of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students have taken, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. Let's welcome today's guest, Fabiana Beuses, even though I mispronounced it because it's Beuses, which she just told me, even though I'm a moron. So, Fabi, please take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself, include when you left the Don, where you went to high school, then college, post-college, and what you're currently doing now.
All right. Hi, Mr. Proper. Like he said, my name is Fabiana Beuses. I left Don Estridge in 2016, and I went to American Heritage School in Boca del Rey on a full academic scholarship. I graduated from there in 2020, and that's the year I started college. I'm currently a senior at Florida State University, double majoring in English and communications with a minor in film. Besides that, I've had an advertising internship, a journalism internship. I'm still a writer for Her Campus Media, so I write for their entertainment and culture vertical, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Her Campus at FSU.
That's incredible. I always love it every time you post something, and I'm like, oh my God, this woman is just really accomplishing things. Like every time.
Thank you.
It's so nice. Like, as I said to you before, Samit came to visit on Friday, and he just interviewed Dan Marino.
That is so cool.
Isn't it? I mean, his own personal legend he gets to interview. It's just so amazing what you guys are able to accomplish and how hard you work to get there. And that's why we're really here, is to talk about what you have done to get to where you are from Club 128, as I love to call it, my classroom.
Absolutely. My favorite place.
Thank you so much. And first off, thank you so much for coming on and telling my students about your life and its experiences, because I know there's a little Fabi out there that's going to listen to this and go, hey, if she did this, I'm sure I could do it too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to speak to everyone.
Oh, you're so welcome. So let's just jump right in. So how and when did little Fabi get inspired for learning? Like, what was that moment that you can go back to and say it was this?
I owe it all to my grandma, honestly. My grandma was, or is, I guess, an orthodontist, and she's always loved academia, and she's incredibly intelligent, and she really fostered that in me. I'm the oldest grandchild, so I spent a lot of time with her as a kid when my parents were at work. She would take me to the library every single week. She would buy me books about specifically like anatomy and very STEM subjects, which is not what I'm doing now, but I would like read those books and memorize every single bone in the human body. When I would eat at her house, the placemat she had all 50 presidents and all 50 states, and we'd go over
She's
those
trying
while
to
I ate.
hammer you with education from day one. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, but it felt very natural. It was just part of daily life. It was part of my routine when I was with my grandma, but really that is what tuned me into loving reading and learning.
And just for my listeners, where do your family originally come from?
My family is from Venezuela. I'm the first generation born here, born and raised in Boca Raton, Florida.
Nice. You had just said something that is a common theme for all of my successful students, is the library. The library
Yes.
is so quintessentially important because most people come from a foreign country where education is now paid for if you want it to be quality. Then they come to America where it's free in the library, and you just have to go get a free library card, and you can take out books for free as long as you return them on time.
Yeah, it's such an underrated resource because it's not just books. They've got magazines, they've got computers, they've got movies and TV shows. There's so many things you can get from the library, and I hope more people start using them.
It's an unbelievable resource. I mean, the one right down the street, I love to see the herd of children as I'm leaving the school walking to the library, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but they're not using it for what you did. They're just
they go
using
to
it
get
as a
soup from the cafe.
right, and hang out with their friends. Meanwhile, I'm like, you do realize they have every magazine for free. They have every modern music there. You can literally take all this stuff out and take it home, and it's there for the use because you're a Boca Raton resident or whatever town you're in. Go utilize the library. This is such an underlying theme that I never thought was going to happen until I started interviewing. First, it was just mostly Asian students, but now it's just any student who is like yourself, a first generation American who came, and the parents, or in this case, your grandmother, took you because they're like, well, here's the free education. Let's get them hooked. And the easiest way to do it is when they are young. And that is so, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'll give you that $20 Venmo later because this is just a theme that's been happening.
Yeah.
So, along with Abuela, who else, maybe as a teacher, who did the same thing? Was there a teacher that kind of took the reins because now you're at school and you're here for 7.5 hours a day? Was there someone who was kind of like a shadow of your grandmother who's like, hey, now it's my turn?
I think you can guess the answer to that.
Gee, I wonder who that could be. Oh my gosh. Now it's $50 we're up to in the Venmo. I don't know if I have a cash register, but I have a clap.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I have a little soundboard. I went to town. I bought all this stuff because I actually wanted it to sound like it was something good.
Oh, yeah,
But
you're a very serious podcaster.
I try. So it was really me that gave you that aha connection. Do you remember what that was?
That's so funny because it wasn't you, actually. It was Ms. Adamo right down the hall.
Of course. It's
Ms.
always her.
Adamo, I talk to her, not talk to her, but I talk about her to this day. I learned so much from her academically, especially because, I mean, now I'm an English major, and obviously she taught English and language arts. But what I most remember about her is that she treated us like adults. I worked very closely with her during my time as the National Junior Honor Society president. I spent many lunch periods in her classroom, sometimes working on things for the club and sometimes just sitting there and talking to her. And her advice and everything she would talk about, it was academic, personal, and professional growth, truly.
Sounds more like a mentor than anything.
Yeah, I would definitely consider her that. I mean, she was probably the first person who made me think about college. She would talk about going to UM and being like an editor for people in her classes, like editing their essays and making money. And that was maybe the first time I ever seriously considered, one, where am I going to go to college? And two, could I make my love of English and reading and language arts into a career?
Well, all of a sudden you heard the cash register going off, going, wait, I can get paid for something I like to do? Tell me more.
Yeah, exactly. If you have skills in something and you're passionate about it, you can make money off it. And that connection, I mean, when you're in middle school, I feel like you're not really thinking about that. You're not really thinking about your future. You're more focused about the class you're going to have and the test you're going to take next period. So she was the first teacher, I think, who really made me think long term about what I wanted out of life.
That's really cool because we all need that person. We all need someone who turns it on and goes, this is what I'm interested in. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I can make money doing that.
Yeah.
I tell that to the students all the time. I'm like, look, with all the socials that you guys have, even if it's a failure, it doesn't matter. Like we were talking about earlier, nothing is a failure if you learn something from it and get something out of it and you can move forward, not just be drudging in the mire of, oh, this is woe's me, terrible. And I say, look, if there's something you're interested in, whether it's beauty and, maybe you can just do makeup and poof, all of a sudden Maybelline and all these people, MAC, they're going to send you cosmetics because you have a following. Or maybe you're into art and you can showcase your art or writing or whatever it is, whatever you're good at. Now is the time to try to hone that skill because you don't have a job. You don't have a family. You don't have bills to pay. And you have this free time. Now, don't tell me you don't, because we can look at your screen time and tell you how much time you've wasted on TikTok and all these other things. But if you find something you're interested in and you can hone that skill, and maybe it turns out it's nothing, and maybe it turns out that it's not, but you learn from it and you can move forward towards the thing that it is. Like I interviewed this woman, Haley, and she said that she literally changed her major. And because she did that, she actually found her husband. And I'm like, wow.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing? She's like, I am a geology major. My husband changed to geology. We're in almost every class together. And all of a sudden, I'm like, who's that guy? And I was like, you see, if you didn't do that, your life would have never changed to what it is today. And she goes, wow, I don't even think I've thought of it that way. So one little change in your life can change the whole thing. So,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah. So the kids always want to know, for you, Fabi, what was the transition from middle school to high school like? And how did that affect you positively, negatively, anywhere in between?
That's a great question because middle school and high school were very different experiences for me because Don Estridge is a public school and American Heritage is a private school. And like I said, I went to American Heritage on a full ride academic scholarship. And so, in doing that, you're placed in classes with other kids who also got academic scholarships, as well as some people whose parents paid for them to go in, but who are genuinely very, very intelligent and very
Hopefully.
talented.
Not just I'll pay double tuition so my kid can go there.
Yeah, I mean, you get some of those as well, but for
It
the
always
most part,
happens.
it became a very, very competitive environment. I felt like at Don Estridge, in the least bragging way possible, I felt really secure in my spot at the top of the class. And I felt like, yes, I was being challenged in every class, but I was also doing really well and excelling. And it came almost naturally to me. Whereas in high school, I actually had to start working harder. And now I'm surrounded by a lot of people who had that same experience in middle school and who are all at the top of the class.
I
So,
am nowhere near the intellectual that you are, but my
oh,
thing is explaining it in sports analogies, where you go to high school and you're the best baseball player on your team in your county, and then Florida State or University of Florida recognizes you, and then you go there. Then all of a sudden, now you're playing with the best baseball players in all of the other counties and maybe even other states. And now all of a sudden, you go from being a big fish in a little pond to being a little fish in a big pond. And for a lot of people, that's a tough pill to swallow. But it seems like you took it on heads on and just went for it and were like, okay, let's go.
well, trust me, there were a lot of late nights just spent worrying and crying to my mom about I'm not going to get into college because look at the people I'm competing with. Because that's what it felt like. It was a competition. It was the environment was very unique in that like you'd walk out of a test and everybody would be asking each other, "Oh, so what do you think you got? Oh, how do you think you did?" And it was just like always an edge. In Don Estridge, I didn't necessarily feel that way. But once
Because
I got used to
you were
that,
that big fish in a little pond. You
maybe
were
I
the
was.
intelligentsia amongst, not saying we're saying the kids aren't as smart, but you were the cream of the crop. And now
Thank
you
you.
are going to school. Oh, you're welcome. Now you are going to school with kids just like you. And for the first time, Fabi, maybe even harder workers or even smarter than you. And for you,
Absolutely.
that was a new thing.
Yes, it was very new, and it was something I had to step back and be like, "Okay, now your natural intelligence and work ethic is only gonna carry you so far. Now you really have to ramp it up and actually put in the hours to study and put in the hours to do your own outside research." And so really the people I was around, it became less of a competition and more of a, like, pushing each other to be better kind of situation. I
But
used it as motivation.
you found, there it is. You used you took the words right out of my mouth. You found the right motivation. Samit said the exact same thing, that he was kind of, but he was more the horsing around, kind of funning around kind of kid. And then when he got to high school, he was like, oh man, I need to get my act together. And then he found a new set of friends that were all workers, that were working harder than him. So he had to step up his game. And I think in the similar way, you were like, well, Don Estridge wasn't as hard for me, but now, oh my gosh, look at all these other people. So you put yourself in an academically challenging situation, and you could have done one of two things. You could have wilted like a week old rose, or you could have just rammed right through it and said, okay, I want to find good study partners. I want to find good friends, and we're going to do this together. And that's what you did.
Absolutely. And I ended up having a great experience in high school and making the most of all my classes and my peers. And it's really great to see where everybody's gone from there and that we all were able to finish and we all did get into college and it all it all was
It
for the
all
best.
worked out. Yeah, exactly. And that's the positive. But we all are there. I mean, I can remember the same thing, going to college finally and crying to my mother on the phone, going, I don't know if this is for me. And I can't just run home because similarly to you, it took me like 6 hours to get home from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. It wasn't just like, oh, let's go home for the weekend like everyone else who lives there. And
Right.
you have to learn how to grow up. You have to learn how to be an adult. You have to learn how to take care of yourself and fix your own problems. But your family's always there to lean on, but eventually you have to do it yourself. And you did. And that's what's incredible. Like, you took each big step in stride and you learned something from it and you kept moving forward to where you are right now. So
Yeah.
if you could turn back time and tell eighth grade Fabi some advice, what would you tell her?
I would tell her something not related to academics necessarily, but I would tell her to audition for something. I was really, really into theater when I was in middle school. I loved acting, doing all the school plays, singing. I would do it outside of school. I continued doing it in high school, but I was always really scared of failure and putting myself out there, maybe auditioning for something professional and not getting it and finding out that I wasn't as good as I thought. You know, when
Right.
you're being hyped up for something your entire life, you're being told, oh, you're such a good singer. Oh, you're such a good student. I mean, I skipped a grade when I was in elementary school, so that did
Right.
a number on my ego.
I remember that you were the youngest kid in the class, and I would always forget. And then from time to time, you would remind me, and I'm like, your intellectual capacity is superior to everyone in this classroom, and sometimes me. And I'm like, and this girl's a year younger than everybody else. Wow. Like,
Thank
that to
you.
me, oh, please. Look, I'm not just blowing smoke. This is who you were, and this is what I saw. But I could not explain that to 13, 14-year-old Fabi. But at almost 21, I can explain this to you. And it's amazing what we see as teachers from our side. When you've been doing this as long as I can, it doesn't take very long. For me, it's usually the first or second day of school. I'm like, all right, that's the kid right there. They're going to become something. Let's see where this goes. And you were that kid for me in that year, because you always stood out, and you always, like I said, you would sit there and you would literally listen to what I said, and I could see the wheels in your head turning, like, all right, where's he going with this? What is he doing? And then, like I said, I would tell these higher order thinking jokes that really are designed just for the really bright kids to get. And you're sitting there giggling and laughing away. And like I said earlier, your friends are like, what did he just say? And you're like, I'll tell you later. I just want to hear what he has to say now. And you got it. And that to me was the moniker to say, this is going to be a successful person. This is a person who is going to get what they want. Not easily, but they're going to break through. The tribes, the tribulations are going to be a thing of the past, and you are going to move forward. And like I said, seeing what you have accomplished, seeing all the writing that you do. And like we said earlier, you went to England to pursue this writing there. It was just like, this is such a perfect fit for this young woman. And you're doing all the right steps, and it's going to pay off. Just like everything else, it takes time, though. You have to be willing to accept it. It's going to happen. It just takes a little time.
It takes time, and it also takes bravery, courage to maybe put yourself out there and maybe fail. I never ended up auditioning for anything because I was too scared of that failure. And when you even taking it out of the theater context, you will never get anywhere in life unless you put yourself out there and try. Action is the only thing that will make your life go forward. You can overthink things, you can plan things as much as you want. I'm a big planner, but it all should be leading up to something. If you just never do anything with all the mental toil you've been putting into it, it's not worth anything. You have to actually sit down and put in the work. And that's how you're going to get where you want to be. And you have to put yourself out there, not being scared of failure, maybe not succeeding, because you will fail if you don't try. That's the only way you will fully fail.
You just reminded me of a story that I did when I first moved to Florida. I didn't have a teaching job. I literally just moved here because my wife now, who was my fiance at the time, is like, let's move to Florida. All my friends are there and they can help you get a teaching job. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Well, I didn't have a job because they don't hire until the end of school, which I missed, or the beginning of school, which I was there too early. So I was looking around for a job because I needed something. And wouldn't you know it, the University of Miami art department was looking for a person to catalog the art. And I'm like, I can do that. I have a degree in history. I know how to catalog. My art background was okay, but I didn't have a BFA. And I went on the interview. There were 14 people in there. It was the whole art department. I was not expecting that. And I was like a little intimidated. I'm not going to lie. Here I am, 28 years old. And I'm like, oh, I've never been on an interview with this many people. Usually it's like one or two at the most.
Right.
Well, flash forward 7 years, and that was my exact same interview for Don Estridge. And if I hadn't had that experience where I didn't get the job, I didn't think I was going to, but it was experience that you can't take an experience away, whether it's good or bad. But like I
Absolutely.
said, when you learn from it, I learned how to sit in a meeting, how to keep calm, how to answer the questions. And it was like, a machine gun. Boom, 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 question, 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 boom, 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 question, question, question. And there was no downtime. But because I had the experience, that pushed me over the top to be like, well, if this guy's not intimidated by talking to 14 adults, including administrators, we got to hire him. And that's why I've worked there for 20 years now. But it was the experience. And again, you're still a young woman. There's your whole life ahead of you. It's not like you missed out. It's not like you
Yeah.
don't have this chance. It can and will happen again. But you've just decided to focus your attention on matters that were maybe more pressing right now. You didn't want to become the next Disney Ariana Grande star. You were like, you know what? I think it's time for me to go to college. I believe there's a young Natalie Portman. Maybe you've heard of her.
Oh, maybe just a little.
Just a little, she went to Harvard for fun.
Yeah.
She stopped acting so she could go to Harvard. Like, come on. And then once she was done, went right back into acting. Like, this is not an uncommon story. It's just you don't hear about it very much. So here you are, I see, doing the same thing, that you are pursuing your new passion, which has been a really old passion, but you kind of let the acting thing cool and take a break so you could go and pursue your education. And the thing is, what's so great about education, Fabi, and all you listeners, is once you have that piece of paper, it can never be taken away from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what's so great about it, that you can put other things on hold and go back to them. You never know. I interviewed someone who was Raisa, who was telling me that she loves to make costumes for cosplay. And she does it. And I said, you never know. Now that you have your adult job and you're doing this on your own, maybe she lives in New York. Maybe you can turn out and do costumes for an off-Broadway play. And that turns into a new career and something else. You never give up on your dream. You just hold on to it. And some days we just put it down because we don't have time, because real life, you got to pay bills and become an adult at some point in time. And you can always go back to it. Like you said, there's always time if you make time for it.
Absolutely. And you can also pursue things that are adjacent to that original passion. Like what I'm doing now, entertainment journalism. It's what I've wanted to do since seventh grade, truly, as a career. Acting was something I was doing on the side and it was really fun. But this has always been like my end goal. And I still get to talk about and write about new movies and TV shows that are coming out. I get to interview celebrities. So I get to be very much entrenched in the world that I grew up in and that I love, but being able to apply my skills in a maybe more practical way. So really you can do whatever you want with whatever your original dream is. You have so many different interests, so many different talents. It's just up to you to kind of figure out, okay, how do I make this into a career?
Right. So basically, you just told me you never actually put this down. You just changed your career goal. You went
Yeah.
from being in front of the camera to being the interviewer of the people in front of the camera. You're still doing it. It's just in a different capacity. So it's just changed a little bit. So it hasn't really been put down. You just are doing it differently. That's so
Yes.
interesting. Wow. So with all of this education that you have acquired, what would you say was your most challenging experience, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah. The biggest challenge I faced was having to turn down my dream college. In 2020, I was kind of obsessed with this one school. I was very much set on the idea of going to a city school. I always wanted to be in a big city for all of the amazing communications and media industry connections that would be there, as well as just living in a big city. And there was this one school I was really, really going for, and I got in. I was so excited. I got in with a scholarship, but it so happens to be one of the most expensive schools in the country.
Oh,
And not
Lord.
only that, I graduated in 2020. And so the pandemic was
Pandemic.
really, really
Put,
at its core. So
put the kibosh on that for sure.
yeah, like was I going to spend, it would have been like $60,000 a year. Was I slash my family going to spend $60,000 a year to go to a big city in the height of the, like the very beginning, the height of this pandemic? for undergrad. It didn't make sense at the time, especially given that Florida has the Bright Future Scholarship, which is just an undeniable opportunity. It's essentially, if you get the full scholarship, it's free tuition. So if you go to any public Florida school. So that's why I ended up at Florida State University at FSU. But having to turn down that dream school was really hard. It felt like the first real big adult decision that I ever made, something that was going to kind of be written into the story of my life. You always, if you pull back and you look at your life and you look at where you went to school, I was gutted that I wasn't going to be able to say, oh, I went to such and such school. But I truly believe everything happens for a reason.
A reason. Oh, that's my grandfather's favorite saying, and I love it too. It does. And here's the thing, though. You got in, and you got to turn them down. You didn't get turned down by them. So let's flip the narrative here. You got to choose. How many people can do that?
I was very lucky to be in that position, and I'll never, it makes me feel really good that I can look back and say, well, I got in. If I hadn't gotten in, I think I would have been almost more upset.
No, devastated, because this is the dream, and the dream was never materialized. But that's what I think makes you the person that you are. You made the clear-cut decision to turn down your dream because the finances just didn't make sense. You didn't want to put your family in debt. You didn't want to be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? This is too much. And that's what makes you who you are. You're basically making an adult decision that at 18 that most people shouldn't have to make.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that, and it felt like a very big, heavy decision to make at the time. But at the end of the day, my head won over my heart. I thought very practically and logically about the situation. And yeah, was I the happiest when I started at FSU? Maybe not, because I was still holding on to the idea of that other school.
I let this go. What was I thinking?
But it's funny because the school was in New York, and I went to New York, I think the year after my first year at FSU, and I went to that campus. And as I sat there just taking everything in, I thought, wow, I am so glad that I didn't choose to go here. Because
can I take a guess? Is it a school that has 3 letters? N,
yes.
Y, and U?
Yeah.
I knew it was that from the very beginning, because I grew up in New Jersey and we used to go hang out there all the time, Washington Square Park, and
that's where I was sitting. And I was looking around at all the buildings, and I just thought, I can move to a big city at any point in my life after I graduate.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. But FSU, for example, FSU is a college town. Yes, it's the capital of Florida, but FSU, Tallahassee, is very much a college town with a campus and a student body and like student life. And going here gave me a perspective that I would never have gotten had I gone to a big city school.
No, you would not.
Absolutely. And it's such a good kind of, I think, stepping point between childhood, being at home, living with your parents, and then real adulthood, like going out into the real world and having a job. This is like the perfect in between. There's people I know here that I went to Don Estridge with, like there's so many connections.
Right. You already have a built-in friendship. You already have a knowledge base. And New York City is just fast, go, go, go. And to be honest, it eats up a lot of people. I tell people all the time, I grew up 10 minutes from New York City. I have no desire to ever live there. I love, love, love to go visit, but I have no desire to visit. Friends of mine who graduated from college, both were living in New York City in a 2-bedroom apartment, which really was a 1-bedroom apartment anywhere else. And when I graduated college, they were paying each $2,500 a month to live in this thing. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They just wanted the New York experience. I personally didn't need it, but everyone's different. And you are 100% right. You got a real college experience because Tallahassee is Tallahassee. I mean, it's a city and it's the capital, but it's not New York City. It's more of a town and it has what you need. Whereas New York, like Frank Sinatra says, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. But do you really want to put yourself in that position at 18 years old to go, oh my gosh, what did I do?
I think if I had gone there right after high school, it would have been fun. I would have had a great time.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. but I would never have known what it is to be in a college town and have the typical college experience. And not only the college experience per se, but academically, I get to double major and have a minor. I got to study abroad in London for a semester. So many opportunities that I may not have had at other schools.
Without a doubt. And this is the maturity that you've always shown. Again, you're a year younger than everyone else, but you're 10 years their senior when it comes to maturity. And that's what stands out to me is that mature kid. I know sometimes it's hard to see well, in your case, instead of being 13, 14, you're 12, 13, but you were shining above everyone else and you were always working towards a goal and you could see it. I didn't know what the goal was until you told me an hour ago, but I know that it was that I knew I could see it inherently. I'm like, she's working towards something. I don't know what it is, but this girl's doing it. And you're making these adult decisions at such a young age. And like you said, so you're a year younger, you're actually making this decision at 17 when everybody else is making it at 18.
Yes.
And that is just so incredible because these life decisions that we make, we don't know what they're going to do for us until after we've made them and after we've lived them. And you just eloquently explained it to everyone. So I know that's going to make a difference in a little Fabi out there who's going to go, I was thinking about that too. And wow, I'm so glad that she said it. That's what's so great about the podcast. Like I said to you earlier, I ask the same questions. I don't change. What deviates is your answer and your life experience. And that's what's so incredible about it. Like Samit was in London. I think he was actually in London the same time you were in London. And he was
That's so
doing,
funny.
yeah, and he was doing something with soccer and he was reporting on that. And it was just so great to see both of you there and, doing your thing and enjoying yourselves. And like you said, maybe you wouldn't have had that experience because school itself was just so overwhelmingly expensive. There's no money left over for the other things. So here,
Right.
you got all these extra experiences that you never would have been able to have. And who knows, you may have had an axe to grind because of that, because then you realize, oh man, I put all my eggs in one basket and there's no bottom to the basket and it fell on the floor. Whereas I go to the free place. Now, all of a sudden, there's extra money to do this. There's extra time to do that. And, like you said,
Absolutely.
you could always go live in New York. That could be the dream in the future. Who knows? You get back into acting and maybe you're on Broadway and you get to experience that. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? The future is unwritten until you write it.
Absolutely. It's beautifully said. And really, because it is so wide open and you can do whatever you want with your future, anything is possible. I just think it takes proper planning and perseverance to follow through and make it happen. Put the action behind it, like I was saying earlier.
Yes. And that goes along with your quote. What was the quote that you wanted to talk about today?
The quote I wanted to talk about is exactly that anything is possible with proper planning and perseverance. If you have a goal in mind, if there's something you want to do, you can do it, but do the research, plan ahead, and then actually take steps to make it happen. And that's the only way it will happen. And you are going to be so proud of yourself and happy with yourself when you're in the moment and you realize you're there. So my big thing was London. Ever since I was 12 or 13 years old, I had it in my head that I wanted to live in London and study abroad there. And so I really did a lot of research when I was applying to schools for college. I made sure that every single school that I applied to had a London study abroad program that I would be interested in joining. Once I got into school, I planned my semesters based on the classes that were offered in London and what was offered at the Tallahassee campus to make sure that there was no overlap so that I would have enough classes and credits that I could take when I was abroad to warrant spending the money to go abroad and to have Bright Futures cover some of that as well. And that's how I was able to do it. And after putting in all the hard work and the planning and talking to advisors and making sure everything was perfect, when I finally was able to go and sit in front of Big Ben and just reflect on it,
Yep.
I was like, I did it. I'm here. Something I've been thinking about doing since I was in Mr. Proper's class has come true. And it wasn't just a spur of the moment thing. It took years of planning and research, but I made it happen. I made my dream real.
It seems like in this world, there are two types of people, and you and I are both of those two types of people. You are the planner. You are I'm going to write down the positives and the negatives, and I'm going to have it all written down on a piece of paper. And then there's Mr. Proper, who's fly by the seat of his pants and hope for the best. The majority of my life, the best has always worked out for me. So everyone is different and everyone takes things on in their own way. But for Fabi, it worked out so well because she was a planner. For it's you and my wife are so similar because like we go on a vacation and she's got every moment of every day planned. And I'm not gonna lie, I complain about it the whole time when I'm doing it, but when I go back through my phone and I look at all the pictures and the videos of the things that I did, my mouth is literally on the floor like, we did all that?
Mm-hmm.
But without planning, it's not gonna happen. So you have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort. And most importantly, as Fabi's been trying to tell you, you have to have a goal. You have to be reaching for something. You're not just going to go out there and be like, all right, I want to go to school for psychology, but I have no idea what I want to do with it. Well, not in this day and age, not for as much as college costs. You have to have a roadmap. You have to have a plan, and not somebody else's either. Because in a lot of cases, it's somebody's parent who's telling them what to do rather than them saying, you know what, I want to do this. But there's also that other kid who's like, I want to get a bachelor in fine arts and I want to be an art teacher, but I want to go to Harvard to do that. Well, you don't really need to go to Harvard to become an art teacher. Not that that wouldn't be bad on your resume, but it's a lot of money when you could go to a local Florida college and, like Fabi said, have college prepaid, pay for it, or have Bright Futures pay for it, and they're giving it to you for free. If someone's giving you something for free, why are you gonna say no?
And even if you do, I just think wherever you go to college or even wherever you go to high school, the experience you have is in your hands. It is up to you to make the most of your time spent there, make the most of the resources and opportunities that are presented to you. For example, like I said, I'm the editor in chief of Her Campus at FSU now. That's something I joined my freshman year. It's basically like an online magazine aimed at college aged women, written completely by college aged women. That was something I wanted to be a part of since I was in high school. I wrote about it in my college essays. I made sure every single school I applied to had an active chapter. And so now to be editor in chief of that, it feels like such a full circle moment. And that's what I mean when I say take full advantage of what's offered on your campus. I could have gone my entire college career as a writer. No, the entry level position, if you want to say,
Right, right.
in
And
this
that's a
club.
huge accomplishment because this is
Thank
something,
you.
again, we're back to a goal. She didn't just decide one day, I want to do this. This was something she wanted to accomplish when she was young. You've had many, many milestones that you've accomplished, but they all started out with a goal. I would like to do this. This is what I'm trying to explain to you is that you are so much, you're an old soul. Have you heard that before?
Many times.
What a shocker. And and I see it and I knew it when you were in my class. I mean, you were an older soul than I was and I was so much older than you at that time. But yet you just see it. There's just something about you, your drive, your ambition, your willingness. You want to do it. Now, this leads me to my next question because how in the world do you have downtime and what do you do to unwind after this ridiculous course load, all of this extracurriculars? What are you doing and when are you finding the time to do it? I am just blown away.
It all comes down to time management. It's a very common trope, I guess, for college students to spend the entire night in the library, pulling all nighters, studying for tests. In no world should that ever have to happen if you plan out your study time and your work properly. So I'm a big, big fan of my planner when it comes to actually getting done what I need to get done. And that allows me to have free time to devote to other things, to other passions, to other interests, or just to myself. In high school, I really liked spending time with my friends, and I got a lot of that relaxation from other people. In college is when I really learned how to be independent and be really happy in my own company and do things by myself. So now when I have free time, I love to go outside, just go on walks and listen to music. Or I'll go outside to the green space on campus and I'll read a book. It's just soaking in the outside world, taking time away from a screen. So much of my life is spent staring at screens, whether that's for my job or whether that's for school, that when I do have downtime to myself, I like to just disconnect. But also, I'm a big pop culture person. I love watching movies. So that's also what I like to do. If I have time for myself, I love going to the movie theaters. I love going to the movie theater by myself. If there's something I really want to see, I have no issue just going and sitting and taking that
That's
all
aw
in.
that's so awesome. I'm so glad you do all those things. So many things are running through my head right now. First and foremost, you reminded me why I love Colorado so much, because my wife and I love to do what the Japanese call forest bathing. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
And there's something about being in the forest that it's like a cord pops out of my back and goes into the earth and recharges me. Because people are like, "You've been going to Colorado for over 20 years. Aren't you sick of it?" And I'm like, "Nope, it is my happy place. I go there and my whole year just goes away. I get to do all the things I like to do: mountain bike, hike, kayak, canoe, walk my dog, just go out and have fun." But there's just something about that forest, because we don't have that here in South Florida.
No.
So yeah, palm trees, not the same. And you just go out there and the air is fresher, and just even a walk. I'm not even talking about going deep into the woods like on a mountain bike expedition. I'm just talking about going for a walk. It just totally refreshes me. And the other thing that you said that really blew my mind, which I've never even thought about until you just explained this to me. You're using your time backwards. Everyone wants to use their time like, I want to go out and have fun now and do my work later. Fabi just said it the opposite. If I do my work now, I have more time later, but people don't see it that way. That is such a mature way of looking at things that I've never thought of it that way. That let me get down and get done what I have to do today, because then tomorrow I have the free time, instead of saying, that can be done tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes if you're not going to sit down and do it. And that is such a mature attitude to have. It's unreal. Wow.
Absolutely. And I think part of that comes from the school system, like having to get up in the morning. I think when I was at Don Estridge, it went from like 9:30 to 4:30, something like that.
4:05, but close enough.
4:05. And I still to this day, those are my most productive times. I feel like if I'm in a school mood, I schedule my classes to be within those time periods. I work throughout that time so that in the evenings I have that time to myself to, like you said, go on a walk or go watch a movie or do whatever it is I want to do. This whole going on walks thing is actually a very new thing to me. I'm not an outdoorsy person.
Hmm.
I love culture. Like when I lived in London and I wanted to relax, I would go on a walk, but I would go on a walk to a museum, or I would
Right.
go on a
The
walk
British
to,
Museum.
yeah,
Exactly.
it was so fun. I was in an archaeology class and my professor had worked at the British Museum for 13 years. So she would take us every single week to
Nice.
the
I
museum.
love that museum so much. It has so much Egyptology. Oh, it's like one of my favorites. Oh, good place.
Yeah, it's great. And it's great that it's free. So as
Yes.
long as you
Oh,
can just,
wait. We have to discuss that.
oh, let's
Talk about
discuss it.
that. Please explain to these kids they don't understand that all museums in England are free.
Yeah. I mean, they are. It's an incredible perk of living over there that
They
literally every,
pay a ton in taxes, but for us tourists, you can go to any museum. I think it's almost any museum in Europe. They're almost all free because of the high taxes that they pay. I mean, yeah, you can donate, but they don't charge an admission fee. It's not like going to the movies. It's not like going to the circus. It's not like going anywhere where you have to pay. It's free. And, you can sit there for hours and hours and hours. I mean, there's tens of millions of art exhibits and different things that come through there. And it's culture that unfortunately in South Florida, we don't have an equivalent. I guess it's because A, we're not as old, but
true.
B, they put the money into it. But I'm like you. I was a museum kid my whole life. My mother has a BFA. She went to FIT in New York City. And from the time I could be held, I was brought to museums, looking at artwork. I love to go to different countries and see what they have, things that'll never come here. But the British Museum is by far one of my favorites, because it's almost every city has one in around the world. Like the Louvre would be equivalent maybe in Paris,
Hmm.
or natural history, or the Met or the MoMA in New York. So you have all these opportunities, but you have to want to seek it out, because it's just a love that you have, and you just got to go see something.
Yeah, there's so much culture to take in the world. It's up to you to culture yourself.
Wow, what a great thing to say. That is amazing because no one's going to do it for you because usually when someone is trying to teach it to you, you're not interested in it. You have to want to do it yourself. You have to want to learn about all the people before us, the different arts, the different techniques, the different styles, the different genres that were available in the 1500s, the 1700s, the 1900s, because now we're in the
Yeah.
2000s. And it's just something I think you fall in love with, but when you have that ability to go to a foreign country, I think it's a little bit easier because the countries generally are smaller and in their cities is where those things are. You're not going to like, you know, outside in a small town, a village in France and going to this beautiful museum. It normally doesn't happen, unless it's like in northern Italy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but they found this guy that they called Otzi Man, and he was buried in the ice, and he was like a shaman. And during the ice age, he got buried, and then they found him, and he's like cryogenically frozen in a museum they made just for him. And my wife took me when we went to Italy, and it was just the coolest thing. It was like we're in the middle of nowhere, Italy, and poof, there's this is because that's where they found him when the ice started to melt. But you have to go out there, you have to experience life. But I love that Fabi is school first, fun later, but it's not like the fun never happens. And I appreciate you saying that. It's not like someday never comes. Well, I'm waiting to go have a good time and I'm a senior and it never happens.
Yeah. No, you have to make the most of life when you're in it. That's what my mom always told me to do. Appreciate the moment, make the most of every moment. And as long as you do what you have to get done, I think there's nothing wrong with going and appreciating life and having fun. I think it's something everybody should be aiming to do, but also know that there's important things that you also have to do. And it's just a matter of prioritizing and time management.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. Prioritizing and time management. Why are you at college? To go to school. There's always going to be fun. I don't care if you go to a small Pennsylvania state school like I did. There is a party 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be found. But if you're not going to sit down and do the work for the reason why you're actually in college, then it's not going to really work out very well for you. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you do because of your track and what you've accomplished, but were there people that you knew in as a freshman who are no longer enrolled in school? Have you come across people like that? Because I have when I went to school, but I don't know if you did.
I've come across people who are graduating later than they should. Thankfully,
Yeah,
none of my friends or anyone I know has dropped out, but there's people who maybe, especially at the beginning of their academic career, maybe weren't as focused as they should have
right.
been, or were slacking off in some college classes that should have been easy, but then weren't.
Well,
Skipped
I
class.
wasn't meaning like your core group. I was just wondering if there was anyone that you recall. They were like, wait, Susie,
Oh
Billy,
yeah.
John. Yeah, okay,
No,
yeah.
no, it's nobody in my core group. I've got a good group of people around me. But yeah, and so they're still going to graduate. They still care about academics now that they're seniors and realizing, well, maybe I'm not actually a senior. Um,
It just took them longer to get there. But then we're back to the
exactly.
maturity factor. That's what it's all about. I don't know how many kids are really ready to be the kings and queens of their own castle at 18 years old when mom is literally kicking you out of bed every day to get to high school that starts at 7:30 in the morning. How are you going to do that in college when mom's not there? Is she calling you every day at 7:30? I mean, that's where
And
the
that's what you
maturity
have to
comes.
teach. Yeah, it's maturity. And a lot of people gain that maturity when they go to college. It's such a learning experience. It's learning how to be on your own for the first time, how to do your own laundry, how to take care of yourself. The fact that you can't eat Oreos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. It's so much of a learning curve, especially freshman year,
Well,
when you're in a dorm.
did the hated freshman 15 enter into your world?
Kind of, probably more of like a freshman 10,
Oh, okay.
but yeah,
You are
it,
a smaller person, so there's
I
less of
am a
you to
smaller
have.
person.
I get it. I get it. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, is that when you go to college, many of us gain, apparently for Fabi, it was only 10, but for the rest of us, it was about 15 pounds of extra weight that we didn't have because we're eating like crap or we're just eating whatever is put in front of us. And you don't even think about it because when you're at home, whether you want to admit it or not, your parents are providing you with nutritious, healthy meals that are hitting all of what you need. Like she said, when you start eating Oreos breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it has to go somewhere.
Yeah. And not even just that. My freshman year, all my classes were online because it was still COVID.
Right. Right.
So I wasn't moving as much as I was in high school, where I had to go to school, walk across campus to get to all my
Change
classes.
class. Right. Right.
Exactly. Any extracurriculars I was doing, it became a lot more of a, well, I'm in my dorm.
Sedentary lifestyle.
Absolutely. And so once school picked up again the next year and I had actually had to go on campus for my classes, everything kind of figured itself out once I got all of the, freedom of, oh, well, I can buy whatever I want. I can eat Ben and Jerry's whenever I want. I put myself on a Ben and Jerry's ban because I just can't be
Oh.
trusted around a pint.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But
What's your favorite? What is it? Come on.
oh,
What's
I
your
love
choice?
half baked and fish food are my favorite
Ooh,
flavors.
yes. Oh yeah.
But
See,
it's all
we all have those. We all have those. Like I just gotta have it.
Yeah, but you can still have it. It's all a matter of moderation as well. That again, it comes into just being able to prioritize, well, what are my goals? And managing not just your time, but also managing your budget, managing how you take care of yourself. You can fit everything in, but it's a learning curve. When you first come to college, it's like I mentioned, you have freedom to buy whatever you want, to do whatever you want. Nobody's looking. You have
No.
to learn to be mature and to kind of restrict yourself to a certain point, to kind of control all of your impulses.
You, as I said, you are definitely an old soul, and you are a 20-year-old woman with the knowledge of a 50-year-old woman, and you understand things that people your age just don't get. So please, if you're listening to this, listen to this young woman. She knows what she's talking about. I did not learn half of the things that she's talking about until I was well into my 30s, some into my 40s, and some of them I still haven't learned yet. I'm still hitting my head against the wall, and she gets it. Please listen to her. I don't care if you don't listen to me, but this young woman knows what she's talking about. So, going along with knowing what you're talking about, what did you learn about Don Estridge as a school after you left the Hallow Hall? What did high school show you that you didn't quite know that Don Estridge taught you? Is there something you learned at the Don that you were like, whoa, I can use this in high school and I didn't even realize I had this tool in the toolbox?
Absolutely. It's funny because I talk to people from middle school, and most people say middle school is the worst years of their life.
Come on,
Anybody who
give a
went to Don
shout out. Give a
Estridge,
shout out. Throw out a name. Come on, say Shayna Francis. You know you
Shayna
want to.
Francis and I have
Whoop,
talked about this.
whoop.
And it's funny because we think that Don Estridge was some of the best years of our life. Really, the people who teach at the school, from actual teachers to administrators to, like, what are they called? Like, not deans, but for each year,
Assistant principal.
assistant principal. Yeah. All of those people are there to support you. And they really did support us and support our goals and our dreams, whether that's having conversations with us, helping us build communication skills, which is something I realize a lot of people severely lack, even in college, to actual academic skills. Like, the biggest thing that I noticed, the biggest difference had to do with writing. You would be surprised how many people cannot string a sentence together in high
Oh,
school and in
hold on a
college.
second. For the podcasters listening, I was so embarrassed when I wrote her my first email. I was like, please do not dissect what I'm writing. And you're like, no, I definitely won't. And I'm on the other side going, I know I wrote that wrong. You're like, no, it's perfectly fine. I'm like, you are the nicest human being. Because she's an English major and she does journalism, and writing is basically her thing. My wife, you and my wife are so similar. Every time I need to write anything, I'm like, Patty, can you read this, please, so I don't sound like a moron? And she's like, yeah, we'll do the best we can. And so it's, again, you just have so many insights and you just say so many things. You said something interesting, that these people are there to help you. What I wanted to know and dive a little deeper in was, did you believe that and know that then, or is that something you recognize today?
Ooh, that's a great question. There were certain teachers I had in middle school that I found myself drawn closer to. For example, Miss Adamo, or really any of my English teachers, history teachers. I mean, I was pretty close with you, Mr. Proper.
Yes.
Even my drama teacher, who is no longer teaching at Don Estridge, but Miss Cohen
Yes.
was so instrumental to.
Even to me as an adult, I love Miss Cohen. Ugh.
Yes, she was fantastic. She was great. And so much of that was actually personal growth, not as much academic growth, of course I got that as well. And like I'm saying, I realized in high school, especially, how much Don Estridge prepared me for a high school and college course load and how to write papers and how to do all of that. But just, I think looking back is when I got that perspective of, whoa, everybody here was really here to support me, not just the people I was really close with, because I saw that in middle school. I understood that they were there to help me and support me. But even people like my math teachers, I'm not a math girl, but they were there to support me and they were there to help me at the time. Yes, obviously learn math, but to push myself out of my comfort zone, because I wasn't a math girl in middle school either. And to kind of handle those types of challenges. But I didn't realize that in the moment, maybe. I think now I can see that.
Most people don't, because again, first and foremost, you were a year younger than everybody else, regardless of the fact that you were 10 years more mature than everybody else. I don't think anyone realizes in the moment exactly what's going on. That's why we do self-reflection. That's why we go back and look at things and say, how was this then? But it's so amazing that you can look back on it and say such wonderful things and know that these people were there to help you. But in the moment, it's really hard because it's like, oh, well, you got me in trouble for. Well, you did it. So this is the consequence. It's not my fault that you did that. I saw you. So there is a consequence attached to that. But as an older person, you can see, well, these people are actually there to help us. And reality is, most teachers, just like most anything, they want to be there because they want to be there. They're not just doing this because, I'm waiting for, it's like, was it Bad Teacher? She was married to a rich guy. And then is there a movie, or was going to marry a rich guy? Is there a movie where someone was just being a teacher, since you know pop culture better than I, and they're just kind of doing teaching until that big break comes? Is that a theme of a movie, or am I just making one up?
It probably is. It sounds like a theme in a lot of teachers' lives.
Yeah, that they're just waiting for the next big thing to come along. And, as the song says, someday never comes. You're waiting for something to happen. But as Fabi's been pointing out this whole podcast, that hard work, as I said in the beginning, in and out of the classroom is what's paid off. But she has had that ingrained with her all the way back to grandma, in the library, in her kitchen, with her placemats. She has done all of these things to prepare her for what is going to be in the future. I think subliminally, you're preparing yourself for every next stage of life by doing the right things now. Whether they work out, whether they don't work out, whether it's positive or negative, you're getting a positive experience that you can go, I already tried that and it didn't work. Or I did that and it was great. I should do that again. And that's just what makes us the adults that we're going to become, because we're learning. You're not, as I always say, I bring it down to the smallest. And I'm like, how many of you are still touching the hot stove because you don't realize that you got burnt the last time? And that's the metaphor of life. For you, you strike me as the child who was told, don't touch the hot stove, and you never did. Whereas other kids, they were told, and they're still told, and they may even be older than you, and they're still touching the hot stove, because you have truly learned, this is not good and I'm not going to do it. I don't actually have to have that experience. And that to me is just an unbelievable quality as a young woman to have, because that's going to take you forget as far as you want to go, wherever you want to go. And I don't say that to everybody, just in case you think you are a very, very unusual person in a wonderful way. And that is what people are going to see and go, I want this young woman working here.
Thank you. Yeah, and even if I was told don't touch the hot stove, I can remember having touched the hot stove one time. And after I did it, I was like, you know what? They were right. I shouldn't do that. And I didn't again. So I don't think there's anything wrong as well with trying new things, and seeing, well, maybe what if I go out on a limb and I do this? And if you fail, but you learn a lesson. That's something we talked about earlier in the podcast.
Exactly. It's all a lesson learned if you learn the lesson. If you keep doing it over and over again, you're never going to figure out why bad things happen to you.
Exactly.
The universe is explaining it to you. Just be an open conduit to receive it. If you're not receiving, it doesn't matter what the medium is if you're not understanding what the message behind it is. It doesn't matter. And some people never get it. And that's an unfortunate thing, but that's personal growth. That's learning. We all make mistakes. We are all crappier people in the past. Let's try to be a better person in the future, because I can't go back and fix the past. And wallowing in it doesn't fix it either. Let's be better in the future and not do that again.
Absolutely.
Well, as I end all of these podcasts, and I know you're going to know the right answer, but I ask it anyway. Does Fabi remember who Don Estridge was as a person?
Don Estridge, he was the founder of IBM, wasn't he?
Close. He worked for IBM, but
He
what
created the first computer.
There you go. Hold on. There you go. You get the clap. So Don Estridge worked at our school, which used to be an IBM facility, and he gets credit for making the first personal computer for IBM. So when Palm Beach County bought the building, they decided as an homage to him that they would name it Don Estridge. And then his living family, because I don't know if you remember this, but Don Estridge and his wife unfortunately died in a plane crash going to a talk that they were given.
Oh,
So
no.
the family felt so moved by us naming the school after him, they actually gave us his personal computer, not the first one, but his own. And it sits in the office in a glass cabinet. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
And that's why we have it, and that's why the school is named that. So that's amazing that you remember that all this time ago. Did you have to take a technology class that taught you that, or was that just things that came up about Don Estridge history?
That just came up. I feel like all the technology teachers mentioned it.
Oh, of course, because that's where the name comes from. You know, if we were named Babe Ruth High School, you know, you'd be like, who's Babe Ruth? Oh, yeah, he's a famous baseball player. So you get that. But thank you so much, Fabi. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story, and the fact that you personify my opening lines of hard work in and out of the classroom pays off. And I see it from your enthusiasm, from all the adventures that you've taken to the future adventures that you will, to the jobs that you will have, to even the jobs that you'll turn down because you're that kind of person to go, yeah, this just isn't for me. But thank you, considering that you turned down that 3-letter university that we're not going to mention. And that, in essence, just tells everyone who you are as a core of a person and what kind of person you are. You're not just going to do it to get to the next stage. You're doing it because you believe in it. You do it because you love it and you have passion for it. And that's what's going to take you very, very far in this life. And me personally, I cannot wait to see where this goes because it is going to be phenomenal. Who knows? Like you said earlier, maybe it'll wind up in London. Maybe you'll just wind up moving there and maybe your life takes off and that's it. And you never come back, but that'll be the thing that you want to do. And again, on behalf of myself and the How I Got Here podcast, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story because it is an amazing one and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me and for all those kind words. I remember sitting in your class and taking in everything you had to say about history and about life as well. So to reconnect after 7 years is very exciting. And I hope that the next generation of students takes everything I said and takes what you say in class and uses it, really listens to it and uses it to push their life in the direction of their dream.
And basically follow you. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time for another episode of How I Got Here and more stories of former students and their journey.